We will start in another. Welcome everybody who's coming in. I'm seeing everyone who's coming in. So we will start in another minute or two, giving a few more people to join in. But welcome everybody. I'm excited, getting ready to share some powerful information with you guys, some life-changing stuff. So looking forward to getting started. Hang tight. All righty. Getting ready to unmute myself. No, I've already unmuted myself, but welcome everybody. Getting ready to introduce myself. For those who have already joined, welcome and thank you for joining me. How is everybody? You can go ahead and if you have any questions, as I am sharing this content with you, walking worthy, seeing yourself the way that God sees you, you can go ahead and put that in the chat if you have any questions, and I will answer them at the very end. Okay, I will answer them at the very end. You will also receive, if you would like to receive a replay, I'll repeat this again as toward the end of the session. But if you would like to receive the replay, then I also have a guidebook that you don't need it for now, but it's a guidebook that I also have that you can download. So if you want that at the end, go ahead and let me know in the chat, and I'll go ahead and get your information and send it to you. All right, everybody. Well, I want to welcome everyone. Thanks, everyone, for those who are still joining. I want to welcome everyone. My name is Cami Knight, but before I introduce myself, I want to welcome, and I apologize if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Welcome, Ali. Welcome, Aquilera. Welcome, Nisha. Welcome, Saul. Welcome, Donita. Thank you guys for coming in, for tuning in. This is a powerful message that I have really been called to share with you. It is walking worthy, seeing yourself the way that God sees you, seeing yourself the way that God sees you. Making sure that everyone can hear me. If you are able to hear me, if you can just go ahead and put it in the comments that you're able to hear me. Great, everyone. Okay, so good. So you are able to hear me. Hear me. Sounds good. Okay, so let's get started. So before we get started, I wanted to just introduce myself. So my name is Cami Knight. I am a healing coach. I help men and women see themselves the way that God sees them, allow them to walk worthy and see themselves the way that God sees them. And how I do that is I help people identify their own subconscious blocks that has been built along the way. And so it's really all about removing the clutter, removing the fears, dismantling those beliefs. And when you make room, what ends up happening is that you're able to see clearly, you're able to hear clearly, and your heart is clear. So when your heart is expanded, you'll be able to love from more of your pure place. Um, and this is really life changing because this changes every area of your life. every area of your life. I want to give you guys a really quick, brief background of my personal story before we get ready to dive in and really talk about those subconscious blocks and to help you dismantle what might be in your way from allowing yourself really to walk in freedom, really to not be shackled by fears or what someone told you or the abuse of what you might have experienced in your childhood. We're going to uproot a lot of those unconscious fears. We're going to gently do them, but we're also going, the whole purpose of this gathering is so that you can become aware and to know that you can walk in true freedom and that you can walk in true light. Now, let me just share with you guys my personal story. This calling really was birthed out of me when I was a very young child. I had a natural gift. Um, I had a natural gift of healing. The natural gift of healing, meaning that I used to, when I was a little girl, I would have visions of people. I would have dreams about people, and God would show me different signs through dreams, or I have the gift of sight, and also the gift of prophecy, and I'm very intuitive. I'm able to just recognize things. So many would call me, you know, some would say very intuitive. Some people might say, "Oh, you're a prophet." Some people might say, "Oh, you're psychic." So many, I get many different things, but overall, that is my gift. And I used to have it when I was a little girl. Um, Thought it was, I didn't really think it was weird. It was just something that I had. And so I would just share this message with people if I saw someone in the grocery store, or if I would have a dream about a particular person, and then I would just feel led to share what I feel God was telling me to tell them, and those things would come to pass. And so I didn't quite know that it was a sort of gift that I had. And so as I became older, I sort of like hid away from that. I hid away from that gift. I recognized that I was carrying things within my heart and within me that didn't feel quite right as I grew older. Meaning, I knew that I had some belief patterns of not feeling enough. Didn't quite knew where that came from, but I had belief patterns as I grew older and as I became an adult. Things like not feeling enough, things like feeling as if I was less than, things of feeling just very heavy in my heart, just very like kind of, it was heavy in my heart, but it was also pushed down. It was really heavy in my heart, but it was also pushed down. And so I tried to find my ways of making myself happy by trying to make more money, by thinking that my answer was in my career, thinking that my answer was in trying to fix things on the outside of me. And I didn't recognize that the solution was dealing with the matters of the heart internally. And so the sign became more and more, meaning that the more that I kept trying to fix things on the outside, the more chaos I kept feeling within my heart. The more that I kept trying to fix things on the outside, the more chaos I began feeling within my heart. And I said, "Huh, this is so weird." And for a very long time, I would say toward mid 20s, mid 20s, mid 30s, I struggled with weight. I couldn't lose weight for whatever the reason was. I would like gain 15 pounds and then I would lose it, or it was off and on. And so there was like, as you can see, just for a very long time, there was this tug of war that I had for so many years of feeling such chaos within, feeling a lot of heaviness within, a lot of pain within, but I suppressed it by thinking that the more that I do on the outside, the more it would fix the inside. And it didn't get better. It actually got worse. My health began declining. I began feeling very angry, very depressed, I had suicidal thoughts. And the only reason why I didn't fully act fully upon it was because I knew that there was still a part of me, excuse me, that was aware, okay, we're not going to literally take our own life. But I will be honest with you and let you know that having those suicidal thoughts came very often because I thought it was the entertainment of that thinking that that was an escape for me. Well, maybe if I can just entertain it, at least there will be some sense of resolve or some sense of like, maybe that is the relief for me. And for many of sensing this for many of you, that has been for some of you, you've entertained the thought of just the thought of it. And sometimes that's what it is. It's planting that seed. And if the enemy can just plant that seed long enough, right? Very patient. If you can just plant that seed long enough, then destruction can happen. And so my divine awakening was within me where I found myself in my mother's car. And I cried out to God and I said, God, the way my life is showing up, what is happening in my life is very chaotic. I'm feeling very heavy on the inside. Everything in my life feels broken. Everything in my life is broken. What happened? Where did this come from? And I don't want you to fix things on the outside. But I remember crying out to God saying, I want you to show me me. Show me who I really am. And I literally was screaming in my mother's car. I was coming from the gym and I was on day 19 of a fast that I had went on that I felt led to go on. And on day 19, when I was in my mother's car leaving from boot camp exercise, I pulled over in the gym. And when I pulled over off the freeway. And when I pulled over off the freeway, that's when I cried out to God and spoke those things. And I said, God, show me who I really am. And right then, God answered me back. And I literally had a conversation with God, an encounter with God that changed my whole life. God began showing me timelines from my past where I had picked up belief patterns ever since it started when I was a very young child. And for many of you, we're going to dive into this today, but I just want to share with you my story. God had showed me timelines in my past, all the way back to when I was a little girl, where I picked up the belief pattern of believing that I wasn't enough, where I picked up the belief pattern, the agreement that I felt that I was abandoned, where I picked up the belief pattern that I was looked over. And God was showing me all these different perspectives and was showing me this was why you were showing up the way you were showing up. This was why you believed the things that you believed. And this was why you also viewed me. God was saying, this is why you viewed me the way that you viewed me. You thought that I thought that you had to be perfect. I thought that I had to do everything, dot every I and cross every T and pray every every 5 minutes and just really feeling numb, disconnected from that. And God was showing me all these different things. And at the very end, God said, that isn't how I see you. This isn't who you are. And not only that, but I'm getting ready to show you who you really are. So on that journey, which was 7 years ago, when I went on that journey to unpack, to remove the layers, to untangle those things, God was showing me all the internal baggage that I was carrying. And as God began revealing those things on my journey and showing me, I began doing deep, deep dive research, deep, deep dive healing, deep, deep dive internal, and God was revealing so much. And not only as the layers began releasing and the layers began removing, my physical weight began also releasing. So I recognized that my physical weight that I was battling with for so long was a direct correlation to the internal baggage that I was holding on to unconsciously that we're getting ready to talk about on today. And not only was God showing me that, but I was coddling myself through food. I coddled myself through food. And over time, the trauma that I had experienced as a child and even as a young adult and these belief patterns and all the things that I was carrying, and I went to food. So my body was holding on to all of that, holding on to all of that as a sign, as a way of like protecting myself, as a way of coddling myself. And as I began, the layers began being revealed, as I began, really pruning and purging, that's when my gifts started becoming so clear. My gifts came back that I shared with you as a little girl when I had when I was younger. It was all the baggage that was released off of me. I was able to function more freely and more clearly. And I was really able to just be my authentic self and align myself and see myself the way that God sees me. And that's what I want to share with you today, that how God has made you authentically. This is what we're going to talk about and uncover on today. How God has wired you and made you and what God has put inside of you authentically, authentically before anybody had to say so, before anything came and tainted that. God wants to uncover that and allow you to see yourself the way that God sees you. So we're getting ready to untangle and unwire some things on today. Okay. All right. So let's take a deep breath before we dive in. So let me explain to you what it means by seeing yourself the way that God sees you. We come into a world, I came into a world, you and I came into a world with a blank canvas. Okay. We come into a world with a blank canvas. We become as children, we become like sponges, even as adults. Okay. We become like sponges, right? We absorb things. We're taking on belief patterns and agreements that oftentimes are sabotaging, right? Sabotaging some. So if you think about it as a child, coming in as a blank canvas, and you're absorbing the things that you are around, some good, not so good. You're hearing, making certain agreements, having certain belief patterns, looking at certain things through social media, through television, through our environment, through our, if you go to church or through our family members, and we pick up are these different messages, these different signs, that these different messages that are constantly information is constantly coming at us as children, because really as a child we are trying to identify who we are, and how we identify who we are is based out of our environment, is based out of what we see, is based out of what we are told. I want to focus today more on focusing on dismantling the unconscious blocks, the unconscious beliefs, such as the self-sabotaging, such as not feeling enough, such as feeling as though you were abandoned, such as feeling as though that you were looked over, feeling as though that you weren't seen. We're going to uncover the why, we're going to cover the how, and I'm going to teach you how to dismantle those subconscious blocks all the way back to when you were a little friend, to when you were a child, when you weren't even aware of what was entering into your being that was not healthy. Okay. I also want to mention for some of you that even the things that happened to you, I want to let you know that it was for your good, that it can be turned for your good. And we're going to talk about how and why. And the more that you step into your divine light, the more you'll recognize and look back and realize that everything that you encountered, everything that you experienced was nothing but an opportunity to propel you into the truth of who you are. That nothing can harm you, no man can harm you, that you are powerful, that you are loved, and if anything else that has went against that truth is a lie. That everything, if you think in your mind, if you think of what you've experienced, as you think of what you've encountered, everything that happened, or everything even right now that's rumbling on the inside of you that you're troubled with, or that's going on in your heart, or something that you cannot forgive, or a grandmother that you cannot forgive, or an uncle that you cannot forgive, or grandfather or teacher, what someone said, what may have been deposited in you, or maybe a seed that was toxic. We are going to stand in our truth and our power to identify that seed, to eradicate it, to allow the truth of you, that light in you to awaken. Because that's all that's happening here. You come into a world, like I said, it's a blank canvas, but you also come into the world as pure light. You're coming to the world as this divine light from God, right? As pure light. And the things that gets tainted and that covers that light is our experiences, what we were told, who were told what we were told we were not. Sometimes misunderstandings that we've had as children that we've carried even into adulthood. And even now, as we have this meeting, there's going to be levels of clarity even within you that's going to unlock within you and bring about a level of truth and freedom inside of you, even as I am speaking right now. So I don't want you to try to absorb everything all at once. I just want you to just allow your spirit to listen, to just be open to hearing what I am sharing with you today. And I feel as though that even that many of you, your heart is very open. Your heart is very open to receiving. I feel an open heart from many of you. Your heart is very open to receiving and receiving the healing that is meant for you on today. Healing doesn't have to happen tomorrow. Healing can take place now. You can even receive that now, even in your heart, and say that to yourself. Healing doesn't have to happen later. Healing happens now inside of me. Yeah. So we're going to talk about what are the things that covers our light. So we talked about self-sabotaging, that causes us to be afraid, or oftentimes we feel less than of ourselves because of those experiences. Many of us have been taught to compare from a sense standpoint of putting yourself down by not feeling you can measure up to the person you're comparing yourself to. You know, many of us have been taught that, even if you think of like sometimes school. Um, if maybe like teacher might have like favoritism or for a particular student, or if you're put in a particular category and you're labeled as a particular label, and you might have had the agreement, oh, because I was labeled that, I must not be enough. Oh, they didn't pick me. I must not be good enough. These are what we call agreements that we don't oftentimes realize as children when we were kids that we've made unconsciously, and how that has carried into our adulthood. And we wonder, well, why is my relationship showing up as a cycle? The relationships or relationship that you might be in, why is showing that cycle of the same thing that you're not satisfied with? And you might be thinking, oh, it's them, or you might be beating up yourself. No, I don't want you to beat up yourself today, because we are revealing truth and we're revealing power, and we're going to stand back in our power, and we're going to take back our power. And what I mean by taking back our power is simply the awareness, the knowledge of the truth of you, the truth about you, not what you were told that sabotage you, but When we set aside and become aware and understand of why it happened, understanding why it happened, understanding that that's not the truth of who I am. It could oftentimes be that person's, their insecurities, their baggage that they have passed down to you unconsciously and sometimes consciously. Hurt people hurt people. You've heard of that saying, right? And sometimes as children, we aren't aware of that the fact that the person that passed that down to us unconsciously, or whatever someone said to us, or what we were told, or what we saw unconsciously, we are not aware that that was a particular, that was their stuff, right? Many of us are carrying fear, we're carrying pain, we're carrying baggage, we're carrying wounds, we're carrying hurts that isn't our stuff. Say that. It isn't my stuff. Yeah, it isn't my stuff. And sometimes, and stay right there, and sometimes we think that because we think that it is our stuff, and this is why I said we think that it is our stuff. We think that it is our stuff unconsciously because this is what we're showing up as. We think that it is our stuff because this is what we're showing up as. We think that it is our stuff because we feel we have to hold on to it because it's the level of protecting oneself. That's what fear does. That survival mode, that fear. If we've experienced something that someone said to us or what someone did to us, and the trauma happened in our bodies, it brings about a level of fear, right? A level of shaking, a level of immediate survival mode, immediate protection. And so this is protection, right? So when you think of protection, in a sense of fear, it's like it's guarding. And when you're guarded, not only when you're guarded from a place of fear, I want to emphasize that because there's a difference between having a healthy boundary, a level of awareness, right, around certain people, but then there's a level of having a protective mode based out of what we have experienced or what we were told, and we hold on to what was done to us and we hold it into our bodies as a level of I'm locking it in, and we lock our hearts, and when we lock our hearts we also lock in the trauma, we also keep in the wounds, we also keep in the baggage, we also keep in the heaviness. And so we're in here, we're carrying this, right, we're carrying this, and it's becoming too heavy. And so the fear says, no, we have to hold on to it because we have to keep ourselves protected. Fear knows nothing about trust. Fear knows nothing about trust. Trusting in the spirit of God that wants to set you free from it. That's why you're having that tug of war. That's why you're having the sleepless nights. It's that tug of war. But the thing about free will, right? God gives us free will, meaning that there's that tug of war. That's why you have that restless night. That's why you find yourself not settled. That's why the constant sense of feeling unsettled, the constant the anxiety, the heaviness, the weight, the depression. For many of you, if you were like me, the physical weight along with the depression. And so you're carrying this around like a heavy backpack. Or if you think about all of the stuff that I mentioned, the internal baggage, all of that, the things that other people told you, what you might have experienced from your past, a lot of that stuff that we're carrying, it's like carrying a backpack around you with bricks inside. That's heavy. And for many of us, we've been carrying it in our hearts. And we're good people. We're good people. We're good people, but we're wounded. We're good people, but we're bleeding. We're good people, but we believe what we have experienced. And for some of you, you might say, well, it has to be true if my mom said it. Well, it has to be true if the majority has said that I'm not enough. Well, it has to be true if my teacher said it. Well, it has to be true that my dad wasn't around. I must be a person that's not needed. I must be a person that that has abandonment issues. I must be a person that feels that that is not enough. I must be a person that isn't worthy of love. I must be this. If I had those experiences, that must be who I am. We're not aware. We weren't aware of these conversations, these agreements that was happening in our unconscious mind that has become locked in. And so because of our experiences, right, because of the internal baggage, we lock that in. And not only do we lock that in our minds, we also lock it in our bodies, and we're holding this, but we're not aware of this. And if you look at yourself on the spiritual aspect, all of that is it's like cobwebs, or it's like shadows that is hiding your light. If you think of your own, the labels that you've carried, right, the labels that you've carried, let me exit this out, the labels that you have carried, um the internal traumas that you have carried, if you think of all of that, think of that, that's how you thought you had to show up as. That was the identity that you've been carrying for 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many years that you've been carrying and showing up as, because of the unconscious validation that you have given what they said to you, because of what you had experienced, because of the misunderstanding that you might have had as a child that you didn't know. Like unlocking the key. Unlocking the key. Let me continue reading my notes. A lot of our programming, I believe you need to sit for a minute. For some of us, we need to sit for a minute. Let me give you a second to sit with that. A lot of our programming, right? What I mentioned you, what the agreements that we've had, the belief patterns that we had, a lot of our programming and view of self comes from our environment, comes from the home that we were raised or that we lived in, comes from maybe like the school systems, but a lot of it comes from the most intimate place, which is our home as children, what we were around, what we grew up around. What we were raised under as children, by the way we were treated or told subliminally about ourselves. So we make these unconscious agreements that I mentioned earlier, and those agreements turn um, into your conscious state. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Those unconscious agreements turns into a conscious state. So for example, if you did not feel that you were enough when you were a child, because from my experience, there was a lot of busyness going on in the home, a lot of busyness going on in the home, and I felt unseen. It was like constantly back and forth. It was not, back and forth of going back and forth. There was a lot of busyness. There was some trauma that was happening within the home. Everybody was just kind of fending for themselves, so to speak. Um, and I remember, if looking back, if I could look at the child that, looking back at the child, at the baby Cammy, I can remember feeling the chaos and also feeling unseen. So the unconscious agreement, even on a physical, the physical body language, my physical language was hiding, because it's like, okay, well, no one hears me, no one really sees me, so let me stay in hiding. Since no one really hears me, no one really sees me, let me just stay in hiding. And being that overall, I was pretty much a quiet person, not shy. I was a quiet kid, very observant, but a quiet kid. And so when I became my conscious state, in my conscious state, because unconsciously I did not feel seen in my conscious state, because of that belief pattern, I allowed that to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what ended up happening? Because I didn't feel that I was enough, and because I didn't feel that I was seen, I want to stay right there, because that's the whole theme of today's gathering. Because I did not feel that I was seen for who I was, I believed that. And so my level of protection mode that I went in was, I rejected anyone who saw me, rejected anyone who saw me, became very defensive, pushed people away, didn't feel safe with people, didn't really feel safe, because I didn't feel safe quite in my environment as a kid. Didn't quite feel safe quite all the way. I had to protect myself. That's I said, Cami, I have to protect myself. And so there was a level of, because I did not feel seen, because that was agreement, I am not seen. I am not seen. So the conscious, in my relationships, as I became older, it was a defense mechanism. If anybody saw me, I deflected that attention. I deflected it. Why? Because my on a conscious state, first of all, it was unconsciously, I am not seen for who I am. Then on a conscious state, because I believe unconsciously, that was locked in and agreement wise, on a conscious state, I said, I am not seen for who I am. So anybody who sort of kind of sees me for who I am, I'm going to kind of deflect it a little bit, because that's been my defense mechanism for so long, to protect me. But it was actually harming me, because I had been in survival mode for so long. It was harming me because I wasn't allowing myself. God had to show me I wasn't allowing myself to be set free, to to see myself for who I was. God had to turn the mirror and say, we get that this has been your mirror for a long time. The mirror of not feeling enough, the mirror of not feeling seen. And you've been saying this back to yourself over and over again that you haven't been aware of. And now that you have cried out to me, because you had your awakening and getting tired of seeing the physical manifestation of chaos in your life, of heartache in your life, of constant struggle in your life, just of feeling so restless in your life. I had to dismantle those labels, those layers, those beliefs, those unconscious beliefs. And I had to show you how I really have seen you. So let's do an exercise right now. Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment. First thing that we're going to do is simply ask the Holy Spirit, how do you see me? God has already really revealed how he's seen you. We've already discussed, I believe, that things have been awakened and shown within you. But right now, we're just going to take this time out and pause. This is your moment. And simply say, ask the Holy Spirit, God, ask within, how do you truly see me? And as the answers reveal, you can either write them down, but I don't want you to rush past that. So we're going to take 1 minute. How do you see me? For many of you, you might want to write it down, like I said, or sit quietly and listen. And as that truth is being revealed to you, anything that would resist that or would say that it is a lie, I want you to recognize the fear, recognize the lies. I want you to recognize them, understand them, because they may have been deep seated inside of you for a very long time. This might be new for many of you. For some of you, you've already been in the healing work aspect of healing the internal baggage. But I want you to simply be aware of the lies, aware of the fear that went against the truth. And as you recognize the lies and as you recognize the fears that went against that truth, I want you to say, oh, I'm aware of this. And I release you. I release it and somehow visualizing it being dissolved, maybe turning into like glitter or turning into like dust and being dissolved into the atmosphere. For some of you, you can even like visualize it being dissolved into light. Any fears, any lies that have been told, any physical abuse, anywhere in your body, any parts of your body where you might have felt that, I want you to focus on that. Not only do I want you to focus on that, but I want you to stand in your authority by releasing it and saying, I give myself the permission to release it. Don't rush past it. Don't resist it. Just allow it to leave and know that it is not the truth of who you are. And I simply say, I am making room to be in alignment with how you see me. Say that again. I am making room to be in alignment with how you truly see me. And that's like an affirmation. We're going to go over more affirmations as we move along. So, talking about asking God, how do you see me? And another question that I also want you to ask the Holy Spirit within you is, what thoughts have I believed that has caused me to live in constant state of fear? What thoughts have I believed that has caused me to live in a constant state of fear? Beliefs that is less of myself, that has caused me to hide who I am. And I also want to mention, I'm going to say the question again, but I also want to mention that if the answer does not reveal, right, if the answer does not reveal, because this Holy Spirit lives within you, and if it does not reveal right away, it's okay. It will reveal in time. It might reveal right now. For many of you, it was revealing during the meeting, during as I was talking with you. So for many of you, it has been signs that has led you up to this point. But know that when you ask the question, that the answer will reveal. Okay. So I don't want you to try to rush it or force it. It will come. For many of you, it will reveal in a dream. For many of you, it might even reveal as you're going on a walk. For many of you, it already has, like I said, it already has been revealed and you've written it down. Sometimes it happens when you least expect it, but do know from experience, I know to be true, that it will reveal. Okay. So that one more time, the question, what thoughts have I believed that has caused me to live in constant state of fear? What has caused me to believe less than the truth of my own divine light? Less than the truth of that. Who has told me less than that? What have I watched online? A lot of things that sometimes we see on social media, there are some things that are good. And then there are a lot of subliminal messages that are very, what many would say, low vibrational, or that would tear you down, or that would kind of just strip you away, or make you feel, less than, right? So being mindful of what the eyes are seeing, being mindful of what you are agreeing unconsciously, being aware, being mindful of what you're listening to, being mindful of what you're engaging, who you're talking to, what you're engaging in, being mindful of that. What has these oftentimes, so when we're being aware, really is going to help you clear away the clutter and step into your divine light. It's going to help you clear away the clutter and step into your divine light. I promise you. And you will walk in to who you divinely are. It will automatically happen. It will happen in time. As the layers reveal themselves, you will see the true diamond of who you are. You will see the true diamond of who you are. And then what will happen is that the flow, the things that you desire, will naturally come as physical manifestations. It will flow into your life as a magnet, because you really are a magnet, right? Whether you believe it or not, we are a magnet. We draw what we are, right? And for many of us, some of us have maybe drawn maybe unhealthy relationships. We're shifting that into soul relationships. But even all of it, like I mentioned, it all works for your good. But we're clearing away the clutter to draw in healthy relationships, to draw in our true desires, to draw even more than what your eyes have seen, more than what your ears have heard, more than what has not even entered into the hearts of man, what God has in store for you. I remember God spoke that verse over me in the very beginning of this journey. And you could have not told me 7 years ago that I would be here. God told me that I was. I knew in my spirit that I was. I just didn't know the how. But I took one step at a time. I took one moment at a time. And each moment was not perfect. Each moment wasn't a 2 + 2 = 4. But I knew. And for many of you, you have a knowing in you. And that's all you need. You have a knowing in you. You have a truth in you. And that's all that you need. Everything will be added unto you. Everything will come to support you, to support that truth. That's how much you are loved. Everything will come. And even what has came, even what has came has guided you to this point. Even what has happened has guided you to this point. So you can be grateful for it all, because that's how powerful the Spirit of God lives within you. That's how powerful you are. That's why you are here today, to move to the next level of dimension, to the next level of power, to the next level of awareness, to dismantle the cobwebs, to dismantle the shadows. So let's move on. So don't forget that question. The other question that I want you to also ask yourself is, how do you see me? Sitting quietly, God, how do you see me? And being open to hearing. God, how do you see me? How am I seen by you? How am I seen really? What is the truth? And what has been the lie that I have told myself, that I have believed, that I am showing up as? And now that I am aware, I give myself to release all of that, so that I can make room for the truth of me, how you see me, making that connection from heart to heaven, making that connection from divine source, making that connection This is how you see me. If you can just even just visualize yourself, just like um, a constant ring of light, right, from heaven. That constant, it's like a constant. If you think of like the power, when you think of like maybe electricity, or when you think of like, I think of, I'm a visual person, but I think of like constant power being added to this light within you, right? And it's like constantly having an ongoing energy field from God, that constant truth that's constantly being revealed to you. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? Visualizing, I want you to visualize that light going in you, that visualizing that truth that's constantly, it's going in, it's constantly depositing, it's constantly telling you the truth 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's nonstop. I want you to visualize that constant truth constantly speaking to you, even when you have the enemy or things, the adversary, or even the things within you that has told you otherwise, that has went against it, that's told you lies. I want you to visualize that light that's constantly being poured into you of the truth of who you are, and is constantly going on, and it never ends. It constantly goes on and it never ends. And I want you to think of it as, I want you to be aware of it, but I also want you to know that it's constantly going on even when you're not aware. I want you to be aware by stepping in your power, that awareness, right? That stepping in your power part, knowing the awareness of your truth, and know that even in your sleeping state, even in your resting state, that truth is constantly supporting you. It's never going to give up on you. And it's always going like an energized bunny. It keeps going, constantly keeps charging. It never runs out. That's God's love for you. Never runs out, never gives up on you, always telling you the truth. So you can rest in that. You can rest in that. For many of you, you have not been resting. And now you get the opportunity to rest in that truth. I have a few more points. So I want you to understand that that takes time. It takes time. I'm going to say that again. I want you to understand and know that takes time, right? Stepping into this truth, seeing yourself the way God sees you, that takes time. That takes pausing. What does pausing mean? Pausing means that sometimes for many of us, if you've been responding out of fear for so long, so responding out of being defensive for so long, responding out of being reactive for so long, for many of us, we've been responding out of that habit for so long. I want you to get into that, to lean into it, lean into the habit of pausing. Lean into the habit of pausing. What does that mean? Because I've been on survival mode, because I've been so used to automatically feeling the heart racing, right? Or because I've been so used to hurrying up and saying something back really quick to make sure that they don't hurt me, or because I've been so quick to immediately put that wall up. I want you to be aware, just be aware of these actions and pause. Pause. Get into the practice of pausing, being aware of your breath, not forcing it, pausing. Sometimes the best thing is to be silent. Remember, I was talking to one client and she said, well, I paused and it still didn't work. I said, there's no time limit to the pausing. There's no time limit to the pausing. Getting into the art, into the discipline of pausing when that fear is here, when that survival mode is here, when those thoughts want to repeat, wants to come back again, right? Because the mind is like old software, but you have the power to see yourself the way that God sees you, and you have the power to give yourself, you are worthy of that. Walking worthy does not mean perfection, being perfect. Walking worthy, knowing, seeing yourself the way that God sees you, is simply by accepting. And for some of you, you may not be quite there yet to fully accept it, and that's okay. The acceptance is already there for you. So it's a matter of leaning into it. I'm going to lean into it because for some of us, we've had that record of tearing ourselves down for so long, and we have believed it to be true. And now that we are aware that, oh my God, it's a level of awareness, like you looking at another person, right? Looking at the past you. And the past you could be before this call, before we got on here. That was the past you. And now you're able to observe, oh, I used to be locked in those beliefs. Now I'm aware of where those beliefs came from. And not only that am I aware, but I am allowing myself to make room for it to be released so that I can see myself the way that God sees me. So pausing is everything. This also takes, like I mentioned, listening to how God sees you, listening to that voice. For some of you, it's like an intuitive feeling, like I knew that I was right all along, or I knew that I knew that I was right all along. I knew that, but I went against it, and I did that, and I knew that that was the Spirit of God. So we're getting into the practice of leaning into that truth and drowning and clearing away the clutter, leaning into the truth and clearing away the clutter. So that takes pausing, that takes listening, and oftentimes it's soft. This is how I see you. Oftentimes it's in a very assertive voice. It all depends on the person. It all depends on how you are wired and how you listen and how you listen. It could be a feeling. Sometimes it's not hearing the voice of God. Sometimes it is, in our sub unconscious, that speaks to our conscious mind. Sometimes it's a feeling, a knowing that you have, an assurance that you have that may have been watered down because of what someone told you, right? And so making that room allows you to stand in that assurance that you've always known. So that takes listening. That also takes grace. I want you to have grace toward yourself. Give yourself grace because you're walking into a new. Don't give yourself a time limit. Give yourself grace. Sometimes how we view time, especially how society views us, and tells us how we should view time. If you think of time, right? Think of time. You may even want to put it in chat. What comes to your mind when you think of time? When it comes to what we've been taught when it comes to Western culture, I know that when I think of time, sometimes I think of anxiety. Sometimes I think of the hurrying up, or you have to get there. Hurrying up, you have to get there, right? And it's like giving yourself grace means that there is unlimited time, stepping out of time and flowing into grace. Doesn't that feel amazing? Stepping out of time and flowing into grace. One more time. Stepping out of time and flowing into grace. The way we have viewed time as I got to hurry up and get it. The way we have viewed time as if I don't get it now, then it won't happen. I want you to view time as abundance. View time as an expansion. It never ends. From a place of opening, from a place of non-judgment, from a place of here's grace, a field of grace. Think about the universe, how it expands. The universe is constantly expanding, y'all. The universe is huge. And that's how I want us to shift how we view time from a place of abundance. I remember reading a quote. I forgot who it was actually from. So I'm not going to say the author because I don't remember who it was exactly from. But I remember there was saying that view abundance, and I want you to view time as when you're looking at a tree and you know how the dead leaves are falling. But when the dead leaves are falling, do you see anybody on the ground, or do you see nature or God in nature trying to collect up all the leaves because that's all they feel that they have? You know, because this is these we have all these we have the leaves that are falling. I have to catch all these leaves. No, nature doesn't do that. It allows the leaves to fall because why? There's more leaves that's constantly growing, an abundance of leaves, constantly, constant abundance, 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 more abundance, more abundance. And that's how I want you to view grace. That's how I want you to view life. That's how I want you to view your heart. That's how I want you to view this process of unveiling because we've shifted a level of consciousness, stepping into the divine light and the truth of who we are. So giving yourself grace to walk into that truth, to walk into that light, and anything that you may step into or that you might encounter on a 3D level, what you physically have might experience as you get off this call, or what you physically might encounter, or what you might or the relationship that you might have, and it might maybe trigger you to those former belief patterns that you had. I want you to get back into the level of awareness. Level of awareness. I'm giving myself permission to make room. It starts in here. Seeing yourself the way that God sees you starts in here by making room. Making room. I'm making room within. Guess what? You don't have to announce it to anybody of what you're doing. The manifestation will happen automatically because it is not about the physical the tangible things that I mentioned to you in the beginning of this call. Remember when I told you I was trying to, for many of you who just walked in, how I was trying to grab for this, trying to fix that, trying to fix my relationship, trying to fix my finances, trying to fix my health, trying to fix me, trying to, on the outside, trying to lose weight, trying to, all these things I was trying to do. That's not how it works, but that's how society teaches us, right? And then, the protection mode that I dove deep into, the subliminal messages that we're fighting against, or sometimes validating that we're not aware of, that I mentioned. And so all of that, clearing that, shifting that, right? Making room. And don't worry about the how. Okay? We've uncovered how to ask the questions. We've uncovered how to allow ourselves to release it. I want you to go back, and for many of you, if you want the replay, I'll go back and I'll send it to you. But being aware of that to make room. So I'm almost done. So I want to talk about what causes us to put up that resistance. What causes us to put up that resistance? Meaning, what causes us to say, man, like, well, maybe it's not for me. What causes us to put that resistance up? The basic answer is fear, right? But to put in more detail, what causes us to resist that can be our human beliefs, right? That I mentioned to you earlier, that we covered pretty in detail. Our programming, what we have been programmed to believe unconsciously. Many of us, we are afraid to step into that new, to step into that alignment, and it's okay, right? It's okay because it's like some of us, it's like, well, that's all I've known, So for some of us, it's like, well, that's all I've known, and I don't like it, but that's all I've known. And what if I step into something that's worse? That's fear. I want to say something right here, and I think this needs to be mentioned. What you have within you, that knower within you, that truth within you, for some we would say your higher self, the spirit man within you. That's why you're restless because it's constantly showing you, it's trying to bump you into the truth. The reason why for some of us we're bumping our heads, or for some of us repeating those cycles, is because in our spirit, or what your soul is like desiring, what you're praying for oftentimes, what it is that your spirit really is speaking from your heart, and what it is that you truly desire, what you have been praying for, what you have been asking for, what you have been meditating. You think that the answer is on the outside of you, so you keep trying to fix the outside, and that's why it's not working, because it's about uprooting the unconscious things that I've mentioned to you. It's about giving yourself the permission to release it off of your heart, giving yourself the permission to lean into the truth and that knower that's already deposited inside of you, making room for that, making room for that. It's a sometimes what causes our resistance is a sense of protecting yourself out of fear, right? I know I was like that. A level of being aware of these things that I'm mentioning to you, being aware, not letting it lead you, not letting it be captive of you, being aware. Sometimes it's just pausing, getting into practice of pausing and setting your intentions of what you are releasing. Setting your intentions, that's that power we have. That's how God sees us, the power that we have to activate that. Setting your intentions, not forcing it when that fear comes, not when that resistance comes, but being aware, fully aware, fully aware. And this is another thing that has helped me step into my power. Remember, one of my coaches had mentioned this. If you can just visualize yourself stepping in your power, visualizing like a light that is coming within you and is stretching far out into the universe. That usually allows us to step into our power, for us to feel supported, for us to feel strengthened, right? Stepping into that light or whatever comes to you divinely or intuitively that it makes you feel that you can walk into that truth, that you're in truth, you are guided, you are supported, right? We're speaking about the truth, right? And recognizing what the lies were. That's what those resistance, that's what resist causes to resist, that fear, that survival mode. Maybe also what causes us to resist is our past experience from our past that was traumatic. So it's, as I mentioned before, it's our body's way of protecting you from that never happening again. Um, the only problem that I mentioned before, and I'll mention it again as I wrap it up, is that when you get into that level of protecting you from it never happening again out of fear, it keeps you in a rocking chair or a constant unhealthy loop. And what happens that we were not aware that we're aware of now, what happens is you repeat the same cycle over and over and over again until you recognize that this pattern is not okay. That this pattern, something has to change. And those are the clients that I work with. When you've recognized that something has to change inside of me, and I'm ready for that. When you recognize the pattern and know a state of awareness, being conscious allows you to heal from those unhealthy, repetitive patterns. Isn't that great? That's the power that you have. The power of now. The power of now. You can be free now. You can even say, I am free now. The how, sometimes my brain might try to worry so much about the how, but I'm making the decision today. Right now, I'm setting my intentions in this very present moment, in this very divine, present, sacred, holy moment, to step into the truth of who I am, to recognize those patterns that I've been repeating that may have been passed down to me from my mother or from my father, family patterns. I'm recognizing those patterns. When you recognize the pattern and know a state of awareness, being conscious, being aware of it, it allows you to heal from those unhealthy patterns. Okay, move on. So here are some helpful tips. Here are some helpful tips, and I'll get ready to check the chat if you guys have any questions. Here are some helpful tips. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I know it's a lot of information, but don't like I said, don't try to take all of it in. Know that your spirit is receiving what it needs to receive. Okay. Know that your spirit is receiving what it needs to receive. Okay. And as you, for some of you, if you want the replay and you want to hear it again, sometimes it'll hit a different area. And you're like, right. That's how it works. Okay. So some helpful tips: visualization, visualization. See yourself walking in that truth. That's that power. That's shifting into that power. That's shifting into that alignment of how God sees you. See yourself walking in that truth. There's nothing like visualization. Sometimes the visualization like hits my spirit automatically, like or randomly. And I'm like, whoo. So visualize somehow, visualize yourself. You can visualize it with your eyes open or visualize it with its closed. How it comes to your spirit, walking in truth. If you can visually see yourself stepping into like a grass, a field of grass, a grassland where everything is new, beautiful grass, and you're stepping on that, that soft grass that you're not allergic to. Some people are allergic to grass. So we're going to picture that you're not allergic to grass, okay? So just visualize you stepping on just a plain field or a grassland. And the grass is nice. It's the perfect temperature for the sole of your feet. And it's soft. And it meets you right where you are. And as you look around, it's a beautiful field, a new field. This is your new world that you're shifting into. Or whatever comes up to you that allows you to see or visualize the newness that is going to happen within you. And I want to mention to you, I want to keep mentioning this to you. As you step into that, because you have the spirit within you, your soul is going to reveal the stuff within you that has been resisting that truth. It's going to reveal those belief patterns. It's going to reveal how you have seen yourself, and you become aware of it, right? Don't be afraid of it. Be aware of it because it's your spirit, your soul, God is on your side, is showing you the power that you have. So when you come against that resistance, that's the block that has been in your way. And guess what? You get to release it by doing the things that I mentioned to you earlier. Okay. All right. So these are some affirmations that I'm going to leave with you on today. All right, hoping you guys are enjoying this. So these are some affirmations that I'm going to leave with you on today. I receive, I am making room for this now. I receive, I am making room for this now. I receive, I am making room for this now. I want to remind you over and over again that this has always been inside of you. It's just a matter of clearing away the clutter to reveal the truth about you, how God has always seen you. And for many of you, some of you who may have been blaming someone for a very long time, or why you may have felt jacked up, or why you may have felt afraid. And you have on this call recognized the power that you have to step into your power, to not give power to that, right? Because that's fear. Recognize that that's fear. When we are in protective mode or blaming mode or pointing mode or angry mode, that's not a level of judgment. I just want you to know that you are so powerful that what we have shared on this session in this gathering, that you are so powerful that if you're in that space right now, I want to show you grace, that there is no judgment, but I also want you to be aware that when you are given that power and you are holding on to that, know that you are giving that power and that you have not given yourself permission to release that baggage, to release those cobwebs, to release those shadows, to release that heaviness because of what it's doing, right? I mentioned to you earlier, there was repeating that reality, and that you want a new world. You want a new manifestation. We are manifesting all the time. I'm going to say that again. We are manifesting all the time. You have been manifesting all the time. Now we are aware. You become aware. You're aware now. This is all about awareness. When God revealed and showed me who I was and showed me the belief patterns and the internal baggage that I was carrying, God revealed it, but God didn't remove it without my free will. So it's a choice. When you are not choosing, it's because you feel that you are powerless. When you are not choosing, it's because you have felt, past tense, you have felt that you were powerless because of X, Y, and Z. And now you know. And now you know. I'm going to say it again. And now you know. And now you know. And now you know. I'm awakening the inner knower within you, the Holy Spirit within you that's been trying to activate, in you, right? In you. This is why I believe that verse, how it speaks to me and how it resonates to me. For I've given you the power to tread upon serpents. I've given you the power to tread upon things. So oftentimes those verse speaks in parables. So I don't necessarily mean, I don't think that that scripture literally means a physical serpent. When I think of that serpent, how it represents and how it speaks to me, it comes from a level of being afraid, or something that would intimidate you, or something that would, devour you, right? But when you recognize the power that you have, so whatever has been your serpent, whatever has been your fear, be aware of it and know that you have the power to release it. Fear is what? False evidence that appears real. False evidence that appears real. That's all fear is. And so we're stepping into that truth. And it doesn't have power until you give power to it. So releasing that and stepping into your true power. I remember for so many years, I thought my power was standing in the fear. I thought my power was being very protective, rooted in fear. Now, there's a difference between guarding your heart from a place of love, from a place of awareness, from a place of wisdom. And then there's also the perspective from more of a lower state of consciousness, is when you are protecting yourself out of fear. We're protecting yourself so it won't happen again, protecting yourself so no one will hurt you, out of fear. And sometimes when we're locked in that past, right, it's understandable, but when we're locked there, it's hard for us to hear. It's hard for us to hear. It's hard for us to walk into that truth. It's hard for us to see the truth. Okay. So clearing away that clutter and to make room. So lastly, here are some simple steps to stay into that alignment. And I have it in the guidebook. So once again, I'll go ahead and send it out for those of you who want the guidebook. Number one, pause and be aware of your thoughts that I mentioned to you. Number two, ask yourself, am I in alignment with what God said about me? Am I in alignment with what God said about me? And if you're not in alignment with what God said about me, remember I talked about the pausing and releasing. Now giving yourself a time limit of how long you got to pause, allowing yourself to release that, right? Stepping into your truth, not judging yourself if you have a bad day or a bad moment, not judging yourself, recalibrate. It doesn't mean that what God told you and what God revealed in you is not going to manifest. That doesn't mean that. The fact that you've recalibrated clearly states that you have you've shifted yourself consciously into the truth. So it's a decision. So it's about patience, it's about grace, and it's about consistency. That brings about change, which brings about manifestation, physical manifestation, because you stepped into that truth, right? You stepped into that what really is. Number four, feel your body. I want you to be connected to your body. Feel what it is feeling. If it feels afraid, I want you to feel it, rest in it, right? Pause in it. Feel your body how it's responding and why it's responding. Sometimes it could be fear, or sometimes it could just be a good feeling. Not always fear. Being aware, like I'll have like sometimes I'll have like, oftentimes, I'll say this really pretty much, I have this sense of joy, right? For the most part, it's always I'm in a state of peace for the most part. And then there are times when I have major hits of fear, major hits of past experiences, major hits of resistance, major that has really like hit me. And I thought that it had power over me because that stuff was coming up. But what I recognized, that was my spirit, that was the soul part of me showing me that this is the stuff that has come up. And oftentimes the enemy will use that. The enemy will use outside sources. The enemy will use what he thinks used to trick you, what he thinks used to tear you down, what he thinks used to make you feel powerless. That's all Satan does. That's all the enemy does. That's all that fear does. That's all the adversary does. And sometimes sometimes the inner me within us creates these things, creates these walls rooted in fear to keep us, right, in our bodies to feel protected. And that's giving our power away. That's filling us when we are not aware in truth, we are giving our power away and we are feeling powerless. That's the truth. And that's the illusion of fear. Okay. Last three: journal, journal, journal. It helps you re-collaborate. And I want you to journal. And sometimes when I work with clients, they're like, some people that I have worked with sometimes feel afraid to really let it out. Like, I don't want to let all this negativity out. It's a sense of shame. Um, it's a sense of like, well, oh my God, like I feel embarrassed. No, there is no condemnation. There's no judgment. You cannot heal what you do not recognize. You got to let that stuff come up. You got to let it come out. You got to shine light on that darkness. You got to shine light on the shadows. You have to shine light on it so that you can step more into, make room so you can step into the awareness. It's nothing but the fear, and the enemy has its job is to keep you back and forth, going back and forth in a state of unsettledness, in a state of rocking back and forth, rocking in a chair, right? Waiting for your change to come, waiting for it to happen. And God is saying, I've already given you the power. But for some of us, and how I was raised, it was like holding the fear and not recognizing the power that we have to shift, to make the decision, to make the choice. That's the power that you have, and you have it now. Last two, and I'm done. Be kind to yourself and ask yourself, am I being kind? Sometimes that's just as simple as that. Like, wait a minute, am I being kind to myself? Like, what does kindness mean to you? Like, am I literally being kind, allowing myself to give myself permission to be kind to myself? Sometimes, healing, I used to think that healing meant to beat up myself, to judge myself, or to judge what someone else did to me. And it really be hard. Like, yeah, that's how we gonna get it. That's how we gonna remain strong. We ain't gonna never let that happen. Like, yeah. No. Is that being kind to you? Think about it. If you had an offense from someone, or for what someone said, and you're replaying that, playing that in your head over and over again in your heart, is that, let's pause and ask yourself, wait a minute, am I being kind to myself? Don't focus on trying to get someone back. Oh my gosh, no. That's really giving your power away. Am I being kind to me by setting myself free from this stuff? How about that? How can I be more gentle, more kind, more patient with myself? I'm going to give these affirmations and I'll be done. I am who God says that I am. I am walking in the alignment of the truth that God has revealed and put inside of me before the foundation of the world, that God has put inside of me, authentically me, in my DNA. I am fully aware. I am fully aware. And anything that will come against me to refuse it, to rebuttal it, I refuse to accept it. I refuse to accept it. Last two, I am shifting my timeline as we speak. Shifting your present. Shifting your present moment shifts your future. And that starts with the belief in everything that we've covered on today. And lastly, before I close, I give myself grace and I flow with ease, fun, and patience. And that's all I have for today, you guys. I hope that everybody that you enjoyed this session. I'm going to leave it now open for if anybody has any questions or comments, go ahead and put it in the chat. But that's all that I have. Once again, I have a one-on-one. I do one-on-one coaching, so I can go ahead and leave that in the comments. So someone asked a question. You mean anonymous? Say, you mean subconsciously, not unconsciously, correct? So I'm not quite sure what um, um, was asked about that. So when I mean subconsciously, subconsciously is unconscious. Yes. So when you are when it's talking about things that happens unconsciously, it means subconsciously it's the same thing. Okay. Unconscious and subconscious are things that are deep seated inside, that happens, agreements, belief patterns that happens inside, that you're not aware when you were children, that oftentimes it becomes our conscious state, our level of beliefs. Okay, so I hope that I answered that. Okay, have another question. How should a person who is seemingly most often suppressed or in battle by the environment they're not emotionally well adult child causes in the home supposed to be? Okay, so let's answer this first question. How should a person who is seemingly most often suppressed by the environment they're not emotionally well, I don't call that a well adult child causes in the home supposed to be? Okay, so what I'm assuming this first part of the question is um, that you have someone in the home, in the environment, where they are not emotionally healthy. They're not emotionally healthy, a healthy person, and they're your adult child. And you're saying it's only the two in the home, mom and child. The parent has very little ability to speak to the child. The child cuts her off as well as cuts her head off verbally. A type of situation she'd leave if was anyone but her child. The child freaks when she leaves because scared, but it looks like anger and control. As a mom and have had a full life prior and belief of full life again, I do feel like I am enough. I do believe in God. I know He loves me. I have hope of a powerful life in the future. But when is that future? What are your suggestions? And what one does in the meantime in the now time? Okay. So thank you for asking that question. Um, okay. So before I answer that question, to answer your question, you guys can go ahead and say, thank you very much. My chat does not work to say. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and for those of you who want to dive further, I'll go ahead and leave my um, link so that you guys can schedule, a one-on-one session with me so we can dive further into that. But to answer your question, for the first person that I just answered, hopefully that I can answer it more in detail, the best way that I know how. I didn't quite really understand how I was reading it. Maybe it could have been how I was reading it. But from what I gather, it seems like you have an adult child, um, who who is not emotionally, in the place of being in a state of you don't want to be around them, right? I would like to dive further into that, on one-on-one, because I want to understand your question. But if you want to dive further, I'll go ahead and leave my link, in the description. But I'm just going to say for right now how it speaks to me. Okay. So the child that you have, it's an adult child. They live in the home and they are not in the space of they're being very verbally abusive. And how does one handle that when you are not the person that is being verbally abusive, correct? And so whenever you're living with someone, that is verbally abusive, be it your child, be it someone, someone that you love deeply, you have the power. Number one, I, number one, you have been praying about this. I would say that. I'm sensing that you definitely have been praying about this. This has been an endless prayer, for you. I need you to give yourself permission to follow the truth of what has already been revealed to you. So follow the truth of the answer that has already been revealed to you. There's been a level of back and forth of you've had the answer that God has revealed to you concerning that matter, but once again, you're taking matters in your own hands, by not trusting that truth. And this is what I'm feeling intuitively. So what I would say concerning that is number one, align yourself with the answer that has already been revealed to you and trust that. You have to start there. You can't take or, um, cause yourself to revert from the answers that has already been revealed to you. Because oftentimes that's fear that sets in. Oftentimes the prayers that we pray and when God reveals that truth, and it's something that may make us feel uncomfortable, it really brings about the truth within us concerning that whole situation. Um, so yeah, I would say honor that truth first. A thing that you've been praying about that you're saying, well, no, God, I don't want that answer. Um, Give me something else. And God has already revealed that truth of what to do concerning that matter. Yeah. Let's see, moving on. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Julie has a question, but I don't, hopefully when I scroll down, I'll be able to see the question that you have. Okay, we have Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Um, oh, this is the same person that does the chat that does not work. All right. So hopefully it's able to work. Um, okay, so here's a question from Julie. How do we love ourselves after we have been, beating ourselves up for so long? Oh, that's so good. Okay. So yes, so loving yourself after beating up yourself for so long, I would recommend you going back to just kind of listening to the replay. But direct answer to that, Julie, is, that's a really, really a great question. How to love yourself after beating up yourself for so long takes that exercise that I mentioned to you, before. First of all, you have to recognize and understand that number one, we are creatures of habit. We are creatures of habit, be it positive or negative. And I'm getting from you that this started in childhood. This started in childhood. Um, Beating up yourself started in childhood, is what I'm getting. And so someone has told you in some way or some form that either you're not enough or some way of making you feel that you have to beat up yourself for doing something or something that you did to make you feel as though that you had to beat up yourself. So this was number one, understanding, Julie, that this was a learned behavior, that this is a learned behavior that you started when you were young, when you were young. Okay. And so it really is about a matter of recognizing that oftentimes what we have been rooted in, right? So if you were rooted in your earlier life of someone taught you this, someone taught you these patterns, and these were an unconscious belief that you had in your mind that said somewhere because I was someone said, could be your mother, could have been your father, could have been a very important person in your life that said that in some way made you feel that you had to beat yourself up over it. So there's a level of recognizing, wait a minute, do I want to continue to believe this what I thought was a truth about me? So there's a level of worthiness. There's a level of worthiness, right? Meaning that giving yourself the permission to say, this has been in my mind, this has been in my going on over and over again. And it started from going all the way back to the root of where it started. Where did it start from? Who said these things? And how have I made an agreement? Sometimes because my mom said it, sometimes it's because my father said it, sometimes it was because of what someone said who was very important to us or who meant a lot to us, and we gave validation to that lie. And so as you grew older, you grew into these habits and forms of believing that's how you had to show up. So it's recognizing within you first, getting to the root of that, and giving yourself the permission to release that agreement. That's where it starts. I give myself the permission to release what they said to me or what I experienced that made me feel I had to be hard on myself. Does that make sense? Am I answering? Am I answering that well? Okay, good. Okay, okay. I'm reading your reply. Okay, that's good. Okay, more the past year. Okay. So yeah, oftentimes it starts from the root and recognizing the root of that. Okay, uprooting what isn't true is everything. Because sometimes we want to fix the outlet, the top layer, the symptoms. Like, well, why? Like with the question that you had, which is an amazing question. How do we love ourselves after we've been beating up ourselves? So sometimes we want to know, well, why do I keep beating up myself? And we're saying, why do I keep beating myself? I don't want to keep beating up myself. I don't want to keep beating. Why do I keep beating up myself? Why do I keep beating up myself? Why do I? And so the undertone of that is a level of feeling not empowered, feeling that you don't have the power, right? Because it's like, well, why? Right? You want the answers, right? You want to know. And now it's the shifting of recognizing, where did that agreement come from? Where did that agreement come from? How did I make that connection with that agreement? Why did I make that connection with that agreement? Remember, I mentioned sometimes it could have been who said it, because it was a particular loved one that said it. and recognizing that I mentioned in the replay in the session that what oftentimes what we may have experienced from others was their stuff, not our own. So giving yourself permission to step into that power to recognize in your where in your mind did you create that agreement? Why did you create it? And know that you can release that agreement by writing it on paper, by releasing it off of your heart, okay? And saying, I give myself the permission to release it. Maybe going for a walk or some, things like that, or doing something intuitively and journaling. So I hope that helps. All right. Trying to answer everyone's questions. Okay, Nisha, what regimen? Thank you, Nisha. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So hopefully I did. Okay. What regimen um, one should follow to dream of the dream which God has shown me when I asked during today's session? That's a great question. So I'll go ahead and mention it. So I mentioned it in the session, but I'll go ahead and mention it again. A great regimen can be just as simple of before you even start your morning to write what God has said to you and revealed to you in the session. I'm so glad God revealed um, the dream and how God saw you. That is so amazing. I love that. I love when God does that. So I would say write down the vision, what God revealed, and look at that in the morning. Speak that over yourself. I would even say record what it is that God revealed to you in the dream during the session. Put it in the record yourself and play it in the morning or play it at night. Put in your headphones so that it can get deep seated in your unconscious state so that you can become aware of it. Even I would even also say, like I mentioned before, the visualization. What did it look like to you? Or what did it feel like? So it's getting all of you into the state of shifting into that alignment. Okay. And that, as I mentioned before, about understanding how to resist whatever might come up. So that a lie that might say that those things aren't true. Okay, so it's constantly being in the state of alignment, saying I agree. So when you're writing it and you're reading it, something about writing is very healing. Something about writing, right? Of how what God revealed to you it's so profound. It's so profound. It also shifts and brings about a level of manifestation. What is in your heart, right? God reveals the matters of the heart and God reveals how God sees you, which is amazing. So speaking that over your spirit, speaking that, like I mentioned to you before, or creating a vision board of what it looks like to you, and having it maybe on your phone or maybe as a screensaver on your computer, or a reminder on your phone. Like, how most people have Androids or iPhone, but sometimes having a reminder on your phone as an alarm. Did I go over my affirmations today? Did I listen to my recording today? Something that can allow you to be in that shift. So I hope that helps. Thanks for asking great questions. You guys are asking great questions. Okay, answer a few more. Okay. Um, the truth I have heard from him, and that is the suffering, and the suffering will be worth it. Yes, yes. The challenges are meant there. That's very, very good, Ali. The challenges are there, like I mentioned before, to help build muscle, to set the foundation, and know that what you are experiencing, what you are suffering is not meant for that to be a part of your life, that it has an expiration date. Okay, I want to mention that to you. So whatever God revealed to you, yes, I am definitely in agreement with that. I also want to mention that in our challenging moments, in our moments of suffering, know that it is always to bring about the good in you, the good in you, and it is not meant for you to stay there. I just want to mention that it is not meant for you to stay there. We're not meant to live a continual life. The rest of our lives is suffering. No, but there are times when the suffering that we are experiencing is always to bring about the good within you, to build your character, to maybe establish you, to allow you to release some things that isn't the truth of who you are. It's always for your good. Hear me and hear me well. It is always for your good. And it's very, very good sometimes to recognize also that you don't have to stay in the loop of that. Sometimes when God is saying, okay, now it's time to shift, to recognize when the shift is happening. Okay, when that level of lesson learning, or when God is in that, has you in that process, or has you in that season, to recognize it, to accept it, to be in it, to do what, to have grace with yourself as God is being with you and guiding you, and also to know, to be in tune to that, right? And also to be in tune when you're knowing when that season is up. Okay, so I definitely am in total agreements with that. Baby. Okay. I felt inferior. Good. Good. Looks like you're getting some questions answered. Oh, so good. I was a baby, and my big brother teased us to feel bigger than us. Oh, so we are, yes, good. That's so good. That is so good, Julie. That's so good that you're able. That's what this is all about. That's what all this whole session is all about, being aware. When you are aware, when you are aware of these things and you're able to do what I've shared with you, implement those things that I've shared with you, it is everything. It is everything. So I will go ahead and leave the link to I will go ahead and leave the link if for those of you who would like to go further with this. I'll go ahead and leave it here. Um, I'll go ahead and leave it here. Uh, okay. So it doesn't have the option button here for me to leave the link to make for those of you who would like. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Okay, so go ahead and leave it here. So let me know that you guys are able to see that link. Let me know that you are. You can go ahead and make your appointment if you would like to just get more clarity on that. And if you would like to get more clarity or more questions on that, I definitely do have a 30-minute session that you guys can dive further one-on-one with me. Like I said, I do one-on-one coaching. So if you're interested in that, you can set the appointment, make your appointment there. But other than that, let's see. Got one more question. Okay. No. So someone said no. So I'm not sure if the question no was to what I said. So my question is, can everyone see the link that I sent? I sent to make the appointment. You want to dive further? Um, can everyone see the link? Okay, so no one can see the link. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's try now. Oh, no wonder why. Okay, how is that now? Let me know if everyone can see. Let me know. Put it in the chat. Let me know who are able to see. If you're able to see. Has everyone seen it? Well, don't worry about it. If you're unable to see the link, I will go ahead and leave it in your, let's see, looking to see. Okay, great. Okay, so I have Julie can see it. Ali said he cannot see it. So maybe it'll take a minute to come up because if Julie's able to see it, then Ali, you should be able to see it. It's in the chat area. So yeah, so once again, I'll go ahead and for those of you who registered, I will go ahead and send the link out again if you aren't able to get the link now. But you are welcome, Julie. But if that is it, if anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments, so now is your time. You have me for another 8 minutes. But if that is it, if that's all that you guys have, um, that is it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I definitely will send out the replay. Oh, good, good, good. Thank you, Ali. Thanks for letting me know. Um, yeah, I'll go ahead and send out the replay. But other than that, if you guys have anything else, that's all I have. Thank you guys for taking out the time to invest into yourself. This has been a powerful and amazing session. You are so welcome. You're so welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. Thank you. You're beautiful as well. I can tell just by speaking with you. Um, that's all I have, you guys. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing people. I can tell just by you're welcome. My sister is online. My sister's online, guys. Okay, all right, you guys. That's all that I have. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.